So, Tony, I've got the top off the CD player. Just had a quick look at the mechanism, tested it a couple of times, and yeah, it's sticking. It seems to be sticking all the time. So I've had a look at this drive belt down here. I don't know if you can see that, but there might be a bit of slackness in it. It's not particularly tight, but it does seem to turn to a point. So I then realised that it's making a clicking sound when the mechanism goes back in, and realised that there is this piece here. I don't know if you can just see a little white piece of plastic there. Where are we? Sorry, just got to be careful because it's on. But you can see that little pen there. Now, when I looked inside the machine, down the back, I found this. And this piece goes on to that. And that is going to be a bit of a devil because of the nature of the plastic that's used. I'm going to try to start with some super glue. I'm really not sure how else I'm going to be able to fix that because it's very small. The plastic is has that sort of greasy appearance, which means super glue is very difficult to bond. I'm going to struggle to get any sort of pin bored into that. I'll let you decide whether you want to try that or not, but as I say, I'll try with super glue and see how we get on. But that seems to be the obvious problem at the moment. But anyway, fingers crossed, and I'll come back shortly. So I've spent a little more time looking at this, and definitely this little piece here comes off of that bit there, and it sits pointing downwards, which would then cause this arm to sit sort of straight like that. And then as the mechanism comes back, then it locates into this little, if I can find it, this little lug just here. And then what happens is the motor drives the tray for the CD forward, and this pulls the other mechanism with it. And then when it comes back, it comes through and then resets and lets the tray sit. And I think that is what is preventing it having a smooth motion. This arm here that I talked about is catching on something. So basically I need to try and reattach this to that plastic piece here, and I've got to be honest and say that is going to be virtually impossible because the nature of this plastic means that glue is very difficult to get it to attach, and if there's any kind of pressure on it at all, then the chances are that it won't take. So I'm afraid it's got to be treated as broken, non-repairable. I won't be able to get a spare part for this. God only knows. There's a Memorex, I can't even find a reference to it on the internet. So if it won't stick, my next plan, rather crazily, is to drill, if I can, a small hole in this arm here, and then looking down there is a small hole in there, and I'm going to try and fashion something from either a good old-fashioned paper clip, a electronic staple gun staple, or an electronic staple gun nail, such that will slot into there, right, like that, fairly firmly, and then bend it or form it into a sort of L shapes or U shape, upside down U shapes, and the other end will slot into that small hole that I'm going to try and put in this piece here, which will be, as I say, this piece here, which is going to be a challenge to say the least. And I'm not optimistic. I don't think this repair is going to work permanently. I'll couple it with some glue on the end here as well, but that is the best shot that I've got, I'm afraid. I don't. You couldn't get a new assembly for this, and to be honest, the value of the deck is such that it's really not worth it. Once I've done that, if it does work and the belt does slip, if it works fine, if it doesn't, then I have to get another belt then again I'm going to try and see whether I can replicate the belt with one of these good old assorted O-rings, which are custom made for plumbing but are round and in a variety of shapes and do have a fair amount of tension to them. So we'll see. I will return at some point. Okay. So after about, I felt like 5 hours fiddling and mucking about, well, I've managed to drill a small hole in both sides and get that pin connected with what was the end of a metal staple. But as you can see, it's not a true join, and I'm going to have to rely on some Gorilla Glue to see whether that will help me just keep it stable enough that it'll take the movement backwards and forwards. As I say, if it doesn't, I'm kind of stuck where to go after this, but we'll keep trying. So I've got the front panel off just to give me a bit more space to work and allow to see this mechanism a bit better. I've worked on that pin that I talked about, and if I just zoom in, you can see the repaired pin there. So you can see the piece in the metal U-shaped piece I formed from a electric staple gun. Drops into one side and then is glued in the other side as well. Now the problem is that it doesn't actually have a freedom of movement on this side here. So I can't get the movement there. So I need to cut out a small piece of plastic here to allow that to move backwards and forwards. Now when I use the eject button, which is one of these on the front, then the whole movement is fine. It's just that that pin can't, let me see it again when it comes back in, so it can't quite get far across to the left because of that piece of plastic. But you'll see the movement, there's no sticking in it now, it's just straight in and out. So maybe that belt that I talked about earlier there doesn't need adjusting. So fingers crossed, and I'll be back when I've done a bit of drilling. So I've, as to take the front cover off, I've taken this unit out, it's unscrewed and loose, so I could get a better look at it and understand what was going on. And I found that this work that I did here, I needed to cut away a lot more of the plastic, because when that little arm gets to the back of the unit in here, in its little notch, it's not moving far enough across to the left this way to allow the arm for the drive gear to go fully through. So if you like, that arm should come along and go straight through the back, and it wasn't able to get that far because that little pin that I put in there wasn't clicking across far enough. But I've now done that. It took a little while with the use of my scalpel, which is a very handy tool to have. And so we've got open, which is good. I think this is the eject button. Eject button, there it goes. That's great. So that's still sticking, and I think there might be some wear on the drive. I'll pull that out, allow it to come out. Okay, well, some work to do again. It was perfect just now. How frustrating is that? Could be sticking at the back again. So look, you'll see it when that arm comes through in a minute. So, yeah. Right, okay, so it looks sadly like this pin here that I've made this pin for, having ejected it probably 10-15 times, no problem at all, had a disc in it and it even played, that was fine. So then I thought I'd video and show what I'd done. Just doing it that last time has forced that pin, has just given up the ghost here, so it's loose and it's not able to, when I press the button, it's not catching, so it's lifted up and out of its slot, so it just rejects again. So I'll do a little more work on that, but I'm not very hopeful now. Okay, Alright, onwards. I've done some more work on the pin and made that, I hope, a lot stronger. You can see there that there's a lot more glue on it. I've had to cut out some of that plastic slide to allow the pin to swing properly because the glue has swollen up, which is perfectly normal. So that now pops in a treat, I think. No problem at all. Now the problem is that when I press eject, it still jams. And then it goes out. Now here is the very strange thing. If I put in a CD, and it's not really fussy which it is, this is Joe Stafford. This is with a CD. Now watch this. In, it rotates, it picks up the disc, I eject, each one of these, I play, I eject, I play, eject, play, eject, reads the disc, no problem. I press play, which I think is up here somewhere. There it goes, disc 1, disc is spinning, that's all fine. And then fast forward, I think it's probably one of these two. No problems in terms of operation. So then I press stop and then eject. I'm trying to remember which key's which, that's it. Out it comes. Now I'll take the disc out, I press, it goes, and press it again and it jams. And the reason, I believe, is that this piece here applies itself or clamps the disc with a very strong magnet, and there's apparently some sort of sensor in here that can go wrong, and if there's no disc in it, it thinks, well, there isn't a disc, there must be some other sort of obstruction because I haven't got the strength to part the magnet, and so it won't eject. I'm going to try and get hold of another belt, because this one down here, the one drive belt there it is, which is just on there, may be worn, but I'm struggling to find one that particular size at the moment. I've tried sort of these sorts of washers which are used in plumbing, but they're too thick and they're not the right size, so it's not doing a very good job at all. So that's where we are at the moment. If you leave a disc in it, then it really is no problem at all. So at the moment, that is my recommendation, but we shall return. So here we are next day. Just going to turn this back on and test whether it still operates with the belt I fitted last night, which was cut and glued. I'm not very confident that's going to last, so I have ordered a couple of spares, but that seems to be going very nicely still. So I've ordered, just had arrive, a belt and spare belt. So these are 17mm across, so that should give a nice snug fit, and I'm going to fit one of these in, and that will hopefully take away the chance of the belt that's fitted in there at the moment breaking. So with the wonders of a little tripod, I'm just going to remove the tray, which involves taking this little clip at the back, giving that a push, and then a second clip on the front, just down there, eventually. Bear with me. That's it, and that frees up the tray, and out she pops. The front's already been removed, so that's why it comes off so easily. Okay, so here's our belt just down here. I shall get my little prong, remove the existing belt that's there, which actually has worked pretty well and better than I expected, given given it's the fact it's glue, it goes back to really when the original advert was broadcast. Well, that's quite a snug fit, that. That's part of it. Last bit over the top. Okay, that's good. So we'll pop the tray back in. Lift that clip out. It's a slow process, but someone's got to do it. To readjust that. Right, so slight disappointment in as much that the pin that I repaired on the tray, in the end it gave up again. So there's the piece of plastic. I managed to take the drawer out, remove this drive shaft here which helps to take it in and out, and there is the broken pin. You can see the wire that I fitted. You can see the wire that I fitted into the end, and then that in turn drops into that hole you can just about see in there. Okay, so unfortunately, so it kind of sat something like that. But now I've been able to take a drive out, I'm able to work on this specific piece of plastic, and I'm hoping to do a slightly advanced design which will give it a firmer fix and maybe not so reliant on the glue. So we'll see how we get on. Onwards. Right, so here is the new pin that I've made. The tape on the end is simply to hold a spring in place for when I put it back. So what I've done is to make another metal pin which goes into this piece here. Where are we? This piece here. So I've got a long piece goes into there, which then goes round like that into the main body, and then I've managed to just bend it backwards. I'll get that back in shot. Bend it backwards and then place that piece of plastic in there as well to help hold the end piece at 90 degrees. There's no glue involved. Basically the glue doesn't seem to work very long, so I'm hoping to be a long-term fix. It all seems to be pretty pretty self-supporting in a way. I've just got to make sure that fits back in the mechanism itself. So that's the next job. So there it is back in place. The spring managed not to ping off across the room, and you can see it's got quite a nice little spring motion on it, which is exactly what we want. Not too hard, not too soft. So I'm just going to put back this drive piece now, and that should be that complete. Okay, slight update. I found that when I put this pin back in, that the piece of plastic I'd helped to support it actually fouled the mechanism a bit. But if I do this backwards and forwards, it all seems to work okay eventually. So we'll just see how that goes with the system in place. Sorry, but yes, that's going okay now. So let's put it back in and see what we get on. Right, so here's another version of the pin, no glue, and this time what I've had to do, the other version didn't hold properly, it wasn't gripping properly, is to drill end on. So I drilled end on through that first piece, drilled a little bit along into this second shaft, and you can just see the metal coming through. And that's it. If this doesn't work, that's it. But it's fairly solid. I mean, it's pretty robust if I can get hold of it. So it's it's got a fair amount of give on it, and it's quite solid when you tap it. So that's all good. It's not bending or going away. Leave that bit of metal sticking out. That's it. Just put the spring back on, which is over here somewhere. There we are. put the spring back on and then try again and see how we get on. First things first, it seems to have pretty good flexibility there. I'll move the springs back on. So let's get the slide back and see how we get on from there. So sadly the pin, it just wouldn't hold. So I really thought that was it, and that was the end of the CD player, certainly in terms of opening and closing. But I then thought, well, desperate times, desperate measures. So I got out my soldering iron and I tried to melt the plastic. So I've put another piece of wire straight through, or metal straight through that, and then I've tried to join or just get some plastic melted. I wouldn't say it's the neatest job in the world, but I have to say it does feel very solid, and I can't really think of any reason why that might come apart. I might need a bit of filing on it just to get it to work, so I'll have to drop it in and see, and it might even need a little bit taken off here, because that there's a very fine distance between it and the sort of running plate that sits above. But anyway, a bit optimistic. Otherwise this is definitely it. This is the last throw of the dice, so fingers crossed. Okay, so the drawer assembly is back in, all nestled in. The pin is located in its new place, just down there. You can just see it's not very tidy. I've had to trim away a little bit of plastic on the runner there because it's was just catching slightly, but it's because it's very, very slightly out of line as well, which will put extra pressure on it. But right, we'll see. So I'm going to turn the device on. No, I'm not, because it's not plugged in. Well done. Right, so back again with our favourite CD player. So the pin that I made is now in place, and it wasn't working before because I had to, because of the way that I had to put that plastic on, it just took it very, very slightly out of vertical. I think you can maybe just about see that, which meant that when the drawer slid back, it wasn't, the pin wasn't sort of catching where it should, and it was flying across to the right over here, and then getting caught up in the band that operates the drive belts. So that was no good at all, it was just getting stuck. So I worked out that if I drilled through here, through the tray itself, this bit here, you can just see I drilled a very, very tiny hole in the side and then carried that through across there and put in a tiny pin. You can see that there as the head of it, just there. And on the other side you can just see it sticks out there. So what that's doing is making sure when the tray goes back, this pin that I cleverly put back together here is held in place and can't flap off to the right. So it's then dragged back, comes through the mechanism, and then ultimately the pin itself is caught in this tray here, and then it flicks it across to the right. So I don't know if you may be able to see that when I put the tray across, put the tray in, if it goes. Can you see that? Probably not, on my luck. You can just see it. Where are we? So that's it, it's just caught in there. Okay, you can just see it caught in the tray there. If I do that, you might see it just move out again. There it goes, and then it comes back and it hooks across into there automatically, which allows then the whole tray assembly to go back as far as it wants to go. There's the pin that I talked about, just in there. Okay, just going across there, and then that allows the white arm to catch on the right hand side. So again, I'll find the right button. You just see it very slowly, it comes back, goes in, catches it, out. Okay, so that seems to be, as you can see, working okay. Just see that as it goes back in, and the tray all works nicely. So the next thing to do is just to try it with a CD and see what happens. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I shall be using my wife's The Best of Joe Stafford, because I don't really care if this gets chewed up in the mechanism. So let's press the what I think is the eject key. There you go. Okay, so it's in, it's playing. Now what's come on display? Display's still got 24 tracks. That's a good thing. Play buttons up here, I think. And well, it says track 1. And there's a bit of, whoa, there it goes. Excellent. That's good news. So I've got some other buttons somewhere if I can find. So I'll get the display back on and then give it a proper test. So we'll just try ejecting it. Oh, I'll be the son of a gun. Okay, so that seems to be pretty good. I'll put it back together and then we'll give it a proper test. Okay, so we're all put back together, we're plugged in and we're ready for the first test. So power on, good start. And Joe Stafford is our chosen disc, I'm afraid. So tell me I want a disc, push the button, in goes Joe, open on the display, press. And should just tell me the contents now of the disc. It does, 24 tracks, 70 minutes. So let's go to play. Again, I apologise for this, but what can I say? That all sounds very good. Try fast forward. Yep, backwards. Yep. Skip. Yep. Go to random. I think it's on here somewhere. Go to random. Next track. So it's gone for 11. There we go. And again, 11 playing 12. 6. Pause. Okay, so that's playing fine, so now we'll just press eject, see what happens. Eject, play, eject, play, eject, play, eject, play. Okay, so we'll do eject one more time, and then I'll just press play, and that should now start auto playing. The random function's cleared, so it's back on track 1. And that is that. So there we are. Seems to be fixed, back in working order. Very difficult to get parts, probably impossible to get past that now, so necessary to do some bodging or just be a little bit creative about how I fixed it, but done now and glad to see.